at the beginning, I didn't realize how important it was. Now in 2023, I'm like, they're the most important. Values are everything.
That is exactly right.
Welcome to Brewing Passion from Coffee Mentality, a small business based here in Meanjin, Brisbane, where we acknowledge the Yugara and Turrbal traditional owners. My name is Dylan. I'm the podcast producer from Kaju Creative, and this is the first time the people behind Coffee Mentality are sharing their story and lessons learned from the journey so far. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Welcome to Brewing Passion. My name is Ian, founder of Coffee Mentality, and today we're joined by Trish. Tell us about who Trisha is.
Who Trisha is? That's a great question. So I am a barista at Coffee Mentality. I help run the van on the weekends with you.
Yes.
I also work in social impact and venture/strategy design. So that's really like human-centered design, which is a whole other topic. I'm also a creative, so I'm a musician in a few bands and a solo musician as well. And what else do I do? I used to be a geologist in a past life, but not anymore.
And isn't that when you started Coffee Mentality
That's
as
true.
well?
Yeah. When I started at Coffee Mentality, that was quite a little while ago now, before COVID, I think, just before COVID.
How long ago was that?
I think it was September 2019, or maybe August, just before COVID.
Yeah.
And I was still working as a geologist, and I needed a change for so many reasons. But I found Coffee Mentality. It was my new home.
Yeah. Tell us how did you find us?
Oh, okay. So I'd always wanted to learn more about coffee. I remember being at uni and I was studying geology, and I would always go to the cafe on the UQ campus, and I was like, this looks cool. Why am I paying all this money for a degree when I could just be making coffees? Anyway, so I had this dream, put it on the back burner, and then life progressed as it does, and I kind of reached this point where I wanted to find some new experiences. I was working as a geologist, and I felt like I'd already sort of explored that career as much as I could. And also I just had a huge heartbreak, and I needed to find some new interests.
Yeah, I did remember that.
You remember this?
Yeah, okay.
So my sister-in-law and I, we did a barista course at some place in the city. I don't even remember. And then I remember I jumped onto Facebook, not Marketplace, Facebook, the groups. I found Brisbane baristas, and I posted in there. I was like, hi, I have retail experience. I've just done a coffee training, and I would love to find something that I could do on the weekends. And I think it was Vanessa that messaged me back, or it was the Coffee Mentality. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I came in for a trial of the markets, and the rest is history.
There you go. So what was different about it? Like, I'm sure you've got other offers as well from the time that you posted it on Facebook. So what attracted you to Coffee Mentality?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it was just really friendly, and I was cognizant that coffee making is a very specialty craft, and I was coming into this experience brand new, and I wanted to work somewhere that felt like I would be supported. And so I remember, and I already knew the West End market, so I was like, okay, this is at least a familiar space to me. So when Vanessa reached out and said, come along for a trial, I was like, okay, at least I know where this place is. And I think I'd walked past Coffee Mentality a few times at the markets when I'd just go, and I'd had a coffee from them, like, this coffee's great. So when I put all of that together in my mind, I was like, okay, sure. And then I came along for my first trial, and it was actually the only trial I did. I didn't go to any other trials after I did Coffee Mentality. And I remember how nice you were. You were so welcoming.
Me?
Yeah,
Okay,
and I remember we were busy. There was
Who
a
else
line.
was there?
Oh my God, who else is there? He no longer works here, but he comes sometimes. He's now a police officer.
Paul.
Paul was there, and he was very serious.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, note to self. He is the man I should not annoy with my questions. And we were really busy, and I just tried my best. I was on the counter, and I remember I was learning how to take the orders in the right sequence. And you were just so friendly, and I remember I was still feeling so reserved because I had just come out of this heartbreak and breakup, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to represent myself in a way that shows that I'm interested when I'm still struggling. And you were just so welcoming. And then after that experience, I was like, this is the one. So yeah, that was the deciding factor. I remember calling my mum after that shift, and she was like, "Oh, it's so nice to hear you're happy about something." And I was like,
Oh, that's
"Thanks."
good. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Well,
kind of the story.
Honestly, I did not actually hear that whole story.
I know.
mean, until now, and that is such a very good feeling to actually hear it
Yeah.
by surprise. But yeah, I mean, here it's not about me today; it's all about you today. So years now,
Yeah.
and so far, what have you taken from that experience to now working with Coffee Mentality and the team around you?
Well, I think there are a few experiences that I've learned. Like, I've obviously learned how to make coffees. I have a much deeper appreciation of coffee as a product, as an experience. You are so passionate about coffee making that it has opened my eyes to the world of coffee in general, and just how passionate you can be about something that I think a lot of people take for granted. But one of the most important things I've learned is the importance of working with a good team. So in my previous job, I was working as a geologist, and I worked with a great team. We were very individual in the work that we did, and just the environment wasn't as, like, I don't know, friendly. Like, it didn't allow for
Serious,
Yeah, it was
maybe?
very
Yeah.
serious. It was very serious, and I'm a serious person, but I'm not that serious. And so it was fun. There was just something about the environment and feeling so safe that I could bring my whole self to work, even though I was only working there once a week at the markets on the weekend. And everyone was so welcoming and friendly, and I learned so much in such a short period of time. I remember coming home after the markets and saying to my housemate Sarah, "Oh, my brain is so full with the amount I'm having to learn." But everyone was so supportive, and that wasn't something I'd experienced to that degree.
Yep.
And it really highlighted the importance of bringing fun and enjoyment to your work, and also working with great people. So I got to learn about coffee, which I already loved,
Yep.
and I didn't know how much more I could love. And then I got to work with great people. And you've just cultivated this environment of warmth. And I've spoken to other staff members at Coffee Mentality about this, because I think people come to Coffee Mentality sometimes when they're a bit lost or unsure as to what they're doing. And every time I've opened up to other people about my story, they're like, "Oh, I was going through something too." And then Ian opened his arms and brought us to Coffee Mentality. And everyone has almost a similar story like that. And so when I got to know this, I was like, what an amazing group of people you bring together. So that was very important.
I think I cannot take credit from that. I think I just sort of provided the space for people like you to connect with other people. And then, because I think, our purpose being, we're trying to create an environment that we'd like to be with. We'd like to be with the friends and the family that we have, and that we are comfortable, that we are able to actually speak freely.
Yeah.
And enjoy the time, for like family.
Yeah,
that's
it does
right.
feel
So-
like family.
But in saying that was as well, I'm sure it's not just going to be all fun, right? It's not going to be all fun. We all have our experiences that challenged us. And what are the times that you experienced that really challenged you, perhaps maybe improved you or tested you,
Oh, dear goodness.
working
Tested.
with,
Working-
Coffee Mentality? Hey, it's not all about just all the good news,
That's true. So
And what can we bring out of that? Or take out of that, rather, yeah.
I think there's so many answers there. Like, tested or challenged me, I think, in peak summertime and peak wintertime, we get so busy. I had never experienced, even working in retail, I had never experienced busyness and having to focus and rely on a system like we do it. We have the system and how we do things. And I'm so glad that I started just before peak. I think it was September. So we were just heading into summertime.
Nice.
So I was so glad that I had learnt that coming into summer, because we're moving at a fast pace. We're at the markets, We also have to build rapport with our customers. So everyone has to, be at their best.
Yeah.
And I have never been so busy and reliant on a system in my life. And I remember I remember the first few times I got to work at the machine. So I moved off the counter and I was working next to you on milk, and we would get the tickets and I was doing shots, and I was like, yeah, shaky hands. You always used to tease me for my shaky hands. And it was just like, Trish, just rely on the system. And I'm like, oh, the system. So that was definitely a challenge. I think also, having worked in retail for a long time, and maybe other people can relate to this, sometimes you can feel a little bit jaded with customers and people. And like, that was something I really had to work on. I think I enjoy being on the counter and meeting people, but having worked in retail for a long time, you meet some interesting characters.
Yes.
And the environment you've curated at Coffee Mentality is welcoming and warm, no matter what. Even if we have a customer who's very particular or isn't, having a great day, and the way you greet them and bring them in with kindness is unmatched. Like, I've never met anyone else who does it like you.
Thank you.
And so I really had to work on my mindset when I started, working on the counter, especially when we were busy, and we would get sometimes people who were obviously having not a great day. And my response, having worked in retail since I was a teenager, was like, listen, if you're not going to be nice, I'm not going to go out of my... But you're like, no, that's not how we treat people. We have to not just meet them where they're at, but elevate their experience. And so I was
It's not about the coffee, right?
That's it. It was the whole experience of being with Coffee Mentality. And even in other experiences now, especially with my job where I am facilitating a lot of workshops and talking with clients and things, it's about the curation of that experience. And I often think back to those moments when I was tested, and I'm like, okay, you have to put yourself or your ego or whatever it is aside, because this is someone and we're here to serve them. And I think sometimes I'm like, what would Ian do in this situation? Like, how do I serve this person to the best? What's the best Coffee Mentality experience I can give them? So I think those are the challenging times.
Yeah. But hey, look at you now. You can run the van by yourself, which you
true.
did.
I did.
And you're not anymore shaking your hands working next to me.
I have just shaky hands.
Yeah.
Okay?
And every now and then I do try and push you and,
did?
give you some challenges, but you take it on board 110%. And yeah, I'm very proud of you for all this time. And thank you for of course, all that patience.
Yeah.
And I hope I wasn't too harsh on you, of course.
You were a great teacher.
But then again, I just wanted to make you guys feel what's the reality out there, of course, because it's a safe environment where we work with, and if we all make mistakes, we can correct it again anyway, and you're not going to be criticized or be cursed for it as well. In fact, you will then realize yourself that, hey, I can do this better.
Yeah, I think that's actually quite like an important point. Like, I've worked just in other spaces, obviously, and the fact that I think a lot of organizations, and this isn't just specific to coffee, but I think a lot of organizations like to think that they cultivate an environment where people can make mistakes and feel safe enough to admit to that and then learn from it. But when you're under the gun and things are high pressure and someone makes a mistake, it's very easy for someone to fly off the handle or criticize, and that can be quite detrimental to someone who's new or trying to learn.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that wasn't the case at Coffee Mentality. And like, when I think back to some of my other random jobs that I've had, that's not always been the case. And you can come into an environment where you're wanting to learn, but sometimes being overly critical can really dampen that experience with someone. And I think, when I think about all the wonderful people that we've had through the cafe and that you've trained and that I've helped train, the fact that we're able to provide this space for them to make mistakes and be like, it's okay. It is what it is.
Safe environment.
Exactly.
Right?
It's so important, because then that person might go into another job or another life experience and know that it's not bad to make a mistake. That's part of learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
it's what you do with it or what you do afterwards, right?
That's it. It's
and
all
if
about it.
all this time now, you mentioned it, you've trained others, colleagues and teammates of ours, and now you've stepped up in the position. And tell us about your new role.
My new role.
Yes.
So you and Vanessa kindly approached me to think about sustainability. I have a background in environmental and earth sciences, mainly earth sciences to be clear. And you you approached me about this position that I could help design myself, to be the sustainability warden for Coffee Mentality. And I was at first very, what's the word, like honored and scared that you would think that I'm even the right person for this job. But I wanted to do it justice. Like, obviously, climate, sustainability, these are all big things that humanity is facing right now, especially when it comes to something like coffee, where the places we grow our beans, and there are all sorts of different factors that, contribute to that. And
It's not just the environment,
that's
right?
it.
When you're talking about
That's
sustainability.
That's it. And you really opened my eyes to that. Like, when I first heard about the role, I was like, okay, maybe it's more of an environmental thing. But I liked and appreciated that it was more about sustainability, like in a holistic sense, like not just about the environment, which is obviously important, but the business, about the health and, mentality of the people who work for us. So not just about sustainability around coffee growing or the the bean to the cup experience, but sustainability for everyone that works with Coffee Mentality and works for Coffee Mentality and, has an experience with us. And that really just shifted my perspective around, okay, what could this sort of role be, and what could I bring to this experience for this organization?
As a small business,
As a small business.
What do you think has that, or what do you think a small business can impact having a sustainability officer?
I
Or
think
warden.
That's the one. And I like that you said warden, because of when you first pitched it to me, you said something that I thought was just really cool. Like, every business has a fire warden, right? They're important.
Every
Every
floor,
floor.
yeah.
That's it. Especially if you're a large organization, someone in charge of, implementing the pre-designed strategies if something is going wrong, and ensuring that everything moves smoothly. And so when you pitched this to me, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And, I got to thinking, and you really helped in this, like, every business really should have someone in this role, whether it's like clearly defined or established or not, who thinks about how can we do our bit to ensure there's sustainability across the board in the organization. And I thought, I was like, well, we could write a whole article about that, which we did.
Yeah.
Check it out. So we wrote that article, and like, I remember going back to my current job. So I work in human-centered design and social impact. And I remember thinking and going back to the tools that we utilize for different clients, and like, okay, how can I start to think about and curate something for Coffee Mentality that will actually be impactful, keeping in mind that we're a small business.
Yes.
And I think, there is a lot to be said around, especially like sustainability from a, climate sense, that, big organizations are the ones that have to really take the charge on that. But the reality is that we're all facing this climate crisis, we're all facing the economic, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many things going on, and we all have to play our role in helping ensure that civilization is thriving.
Exactly, yeah.
So I felt like it was my responsibility to really think about how to ensure Coffee Mentality is sustainable in every sense, whilst keeping in mind that we're a small business. We are focused on helping people, passion, and planet. That's our
values.
Our values.
That's correct, yeah.
And also, like, there are so many moving parts to what sustainability can mean.
Exactly.
It's a buzzword right now. Everyone wants to be
Yes, yeah,
sustainable.
right.
Oh, sustainable.
But really, sustainability, I think, is everyone's responsibility.
I agree. Yeah.
Not just yours, but we decided as a small business, hey, it's not just big business can have a sustainability warden. I don't even know if that's the term for it, but it is a symbol that we are doing something about it.
Yeah.
It is part of our values that we have to act in everything. We're not in a perfect business that we can answer every solution. Everything that you have to consider the environment costs money.
It does.
But before we do that and spend money, let us use our resources with what we have, and that is your role to actually foresee that, hey, we don't necessarily need to spend. We can actually save and put them all together in this container instead of using a new one. And I think you are the perfect person to actually provide that, besides, of course, the credibility that
Well,
you
yeah.
have?
I mean, I must admit though, like coming into this role, you have already been doing a great job in thinking about these kind of things. Like even I remember when I just started and we were thinking about how do we ensure that we preserve milk and use milk efficiently. Like I remember moving from counter to shots and then I got to finally do milk. I was like, yes, I
How
made
long?
it. I'm going to be a barista. And there was just so much more than, oh, the oat milk goes in this jug and this jug goes in. No, it was about how do you ensure that you are pouring the correct amount so we're not wasting milk, that we're putting the right, using water effectively, that, you're heating things
Especially
to
the van, yeah.
especially in the van because we have finite resources more than ever
Yes.
at the van.
Yeah.
And that was another like steep learning curve. But
Don't throw milk there, Trish.
yeah, I was like,
Not again.
it was like 2 times.
Yeah.
So like there's just so many more layers to sustainability. Like environmentally, of course, super important. And that's multifaceted too. But it was also like sustainability for our people. Like I think a lot about, especially with my 9 to 5 job, we think a lot about sustainability and mental well-being.
Yes.
Like mental well-being and how our people are feeling, how communities are feeling. How do we design things to be focused on centering the human being at the core of the problem? My work's motto at the moment, at least, is to make a world that is fair, sustainable, and well. And then we have people passionate.
Yeah.
I was like,
there
oh,
you
I'm
go.
getting this from all corners.
Yeah.
So there was a beautiful marriage there, and it allowed me to constantly be doing work between the two roles that allowed me to think about each one. So I guess, when it came to sustainability, clearly there's an environmental need there, and you'd already started to do things with our packaging and being conscious of how you use resources, especially at the van, and how we just conduct business in general. But then it's also like, okay, we have staff who are people who have their own experiences and challenges.
Exactly.
How do you support them to reach their goals or maybe move through their challenges? Yeah. How do we create
Energy.
Exactly. It's not just planets, people.
That's right.
How do we cultivate passions?
So that's exactly our values, which
Yeah.
technically made us who we are here.
Yeah.
13 years ago, it has been in
13
there already
years?
for coming 13 years. It's all about the people,
Yeah.
our passion, and in consideration of the planet.
Mm.
Tell us about that. Like, how does that relate to you? Because for me, that is something that I have sort of created and envisioned in my business. That this is what I want in a perfect world, or like in 5 years from now, this is what I would ideally want to do. But I want to hear from you. How is this important, and how is these values impacted you working with us for all this time?
Well, when I started at Coffee Mentality, I hadn't realized the importance of values as a concept in general. Like I was coming from a very different work experience, and the values that we had at my previous organization weren't really people oriented. It was like honesty and working hard and loyal, very like corporate rah-rah jargon. Then I moved to Coffee Mentality and I came across these values. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is different. And it felt good.
Felt personal.
It did. It felt
yeah.
personal. I felt authentic. And I know the word authentic is used a lot, but it truly felt real. I don't know how else to put that. And then I moved jobs, like from my geology job to where I currently work at Spur, which is the design consultancy I work for. And we had very clear values, very clear. And I remember one of the very first activities that my boss Will asked me to do was to move through a list of values that had already been like pre-designed, like all these different value words, and through a process of elimination, figure out what my values were. And I'd never, ever really thought about it. Like I knew I valued certain things, but when it came down to like these 5 values that I had, they were very in line with people, passion, and planet. I'd done science. I feel like I'm a very empathetic, human-oriented person, and I love the things that I'm about, which is passion. So, and then with Spur as well, like I had 5 of them, and I'll need to like reflect back on what they were. I have them written, I think, in my journal. But
you have to put it in a shirt.
I should
So you
make a
won't
shirt.
forget it.
So these values, they had now these words that kind of represented who I was. And then I looked at where I was working, and thankfully at the time at Coffee Mentality and at Spur, they were perfectly aligned. And it really made me think, like, there is real power in working somewhere where your values aligned, and also just identifying what those values could be.
Exactly, yeah.
On a side note, we also did this project at my job that helped an organization design their values. We talked to all of their staff. It was a huge project, and it was really cool. And we got to talk about values and things like that. And it just reinforced how important values are. So now when I see, on the back of our Coffee Mentality shirts, people, passion, and planet, or when we talk about them, like I've been in a few coffee experiences where we have people come through and you talk about this, it is so clear how much it resonates with people, because the categories of people, passion, and planet, for me, just highlight all the facets that we need to be caring about right now. You can't have one without the other for things to be harmonious. So at the beginning, I didn't realize how important it was. Now in 2023, I'm like, they're the most important. Values are everything.
That is exactly right. And then we're still going.
And we're still going.
Yeah, and hopefully for more long time.
We
I
will be.
suppose. Yeah.
No,
So
we will be.
you've also mentioned the people in there now. Passion. I'm sure you've got other than coffee, you've got other things.
do.
Tell us about that.
Well, okay, so so coffee is one of my passions. I remember when I had to articulate to, especially my family, because I do a lot of other things. Like, why are you spending so much time in coffee? I'm like, well, for multiple reasons, but I think it's a beautiful balance of science, which is what I've studied, and art, and I'm also a creative. So, as I mentioned, I'm also a musician. I do some modeling. I do some production and producing and things like that. Tick, 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 all these things. Where do I sleep? I don't. Anyway, and so I think like coffee for me is actually the middle point that sort of balances everything. So in terms of passion, and I remember very early on when I was working at Coffee Mentality, you're like, what are your other, passions? What do you like to do? And I was
What
like,
is your goal?
what are your
Remember?
goals? And I was like, my goals? Oh my God, where do I begin? So music has been a big part of my life ever since I was a child.
You've always been a star.
I've always
Trish.
been a star. Oh God, no, I don't know about that. But I've always been very about what I'm about. And I took a long break from music for various reasons. But in the last maybe 4 years, I've taken it quite seriously. And now I've started my own independent artistry under the name Saro Roro. Some
Well
people
done.
might know me as. I'm in the Obscure Orchestra. I'm in 2 other bands, Patient Lounge and the Midnight Sound Machine. And in terms of passion, it like that fills my cup more than probably anything else, even in terms of other creative things. Like I do some modeling, which I'm very fortunate to do with Rebel Agency, and got to do some other cool things like that. But music for me is the end goal. It's the thing that I'm the most about.
Oh, yeah.
And it's nice to work in places like Coffee Mentality and even at Spur that are very supportive of that and allow me to bring that fullness of myself to my job, because even like recently I asked if I could work a little bit less so that I can manage all these gigs that I've got going on, which has been very fun and exhausting.
That's good. I'm happy to actually hear that you are now very fixed and know exactly what the end goal was, because when we started in the beginning, it was just like a kind of question mark.
Yeah.
But that was the idea.
Yeah.
Through coffee,
That's
we
it.
want to change people's mentality.
Yeah.
And thinking of eventually getting exactly or finding exactly what they want in life.
I agree.
And because of you saying that, I think we've succeeded.
I think so.
Yeah,
And
and
I
you
think
are
that's
very
a cool
happy, yeah.
I think that's a cool part about coffee mentality in the sense that you get people to interrogate what they really care about.
Interrogate.
No, like in a calm way. You know what I mean? Like, because originally we were going to start a coffee cart, and I was very
Yes.
invested in that, but things just didn't seem to work out. And even now, like in an ideal world, when I have maybe more time and more money, that would be something I would definitely love to do. Like, these are all passions of mine, and you got me to really think about every shift. Like, Trish, what are you passionate about? What are your goals? What are you thinking about? And whether it was the van or running a cart or thinking about music, you would always be there, gently pushing me forward.
Interrogate you. What have you
What
thought
are you
today?
doing? So, like even though music is the highlight, the main thing, that doesn't mean that there aren't sub passions there.
Got you there.
I'm very invested in Coffee Mentality as a business and where we can go. I don't, even though I remember when I first started, you're like, we want to train you so that you can be able to work at any cafe. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere.
Just want to
Sorry,
stay in the market.
I'm
Yeah,
staying. I'm staying
No,
forever.
I'm happy to hear that because definitely your energy now is I'm feeling your energy that,
Yeah.
that you're happy
Right.
and going back to our happy index, it's exactly what we wanted to kind of get. Like if you are happy,
Yeah.
our customers happy, naturally the business would be happy as well. And that's our happy index
That's
as a business. So yeah, and to see you here saying all that I am very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I've always been proud of you even before anyway. I knew in the beginning, I
I
told
was
you
struggling.
you will be a star and you are
Thank
indeed.
Yeah, I just think it was very interesting. Like I remember maybe it was at a Christmas party before last when we were at the Turkish place and we
Oh,
were
yeah.
all having a great time and I remember leaning over to maybe it was Fergus or someone. I was like, why did you come to Coffee Mentality? And everyone has this story about coming from something challenging and then Coffee Mentality guiding them through that experience. And I was like, I was heartbroken. And Ian helped me put myself together through coffee. So I think there's something very special about the experience that is curated around helping
You guys
other
created,
people.
remember?
Yeah, well,
I'm
that's
here, who created the space.
Yeah.
But you guys actually created, of course, the atmosphere
Yeah.
between yourselves. And by not realizing, you're actually helping each other. So, again, going back to our happy index, that's the environment that we wanted to create. The business is just sort of the platform, if that's how you call it. But we are technically creating an environment. We're creating a community that we all like to be there. I remember you used to fight with. It was like, I want to work in the market. Who else is? You know
yeah,
what I mean?
like it's mine.
Like I am very proud to actually say that. Like I know it doesn't sound nice, but to think about it in a nice way for someone who's already a professional, who still wants to be a barista.
Yeah.
And that's something that's like for me. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. I think, like even having brought friends through, like we do the coffee tasting at East Brisbane, right?
Yes, yeah.
I brought some friends to that. And, you said you're building this community. I think, especially because of how values aligned we are, it's more than a community. Like I honestly feel like we're starting a bit of a movement here, like orienting people around caring for one another, caring about their passions and driving them towards figuring that out and maybe doing it.
Yeah.
And also the planet, like without any of those three things in some sort of harmony, you're not going to feel happiness index.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And I think you did mention community. So when I'm talking about community, it's not just us, like within our team. We're also reaching out with the business around us, other businesses around us. In fact, as well, I think you did collab with other sort of coffee professionals as well, and you experience are part of the Urban Coffee Grown project.
Yes,
You
that
still
was very
remember
cool.
that?
I do. I remember picking and husking all those coffee. Yeah, I will never forget that. My fingers won't forget.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
That was a very
So what did you think about that experience? But
Oh, I loved that experience. And so for the people listening at home, I remember we were in your backyard, I think, and you had already picked so you were growing coffee plants at home.
yes.
And you'd harvested all these coffee cherries, and we got to really, as baristas, which is something I don't think a lot of baristas have the opportunity to do.
A lot of people or a lot of baristas haven't even seen coffee cherry or a plant, in fact.
That's it. So we got to see the coffee fruit, and then remove it from its cherry, like the fruit, to get the seed or the seed. I guess, and understand all the processes from plant all the way to cup. And I remember that first time we were sitting down and, manually
Yeah.
I thought I was coming over for a barbecue, and here I am doing manual labor.
Hard work,
Hard
right?
work.
So this is at least you
Yeah.
get to feel what the farmers feel in origin.
I
Yes.
had a much higher respect for the coffee I drink from that point. But I remember, like, as I was doing this and I documented some, put it on Instagram, and the number of people, of all the things I've ever posted, people are like, wow, I didn't know coffee's actually even grew
in Brisbane.
in Brisbane,
Yeah.
in a fruit, and so from a barista's point of view, it was wildly educational, but like there's just something, and I think that's why we've started also this coffee experience at East Brisbane, but people are keen to learn about and understand what goes into making
A cup of
a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Especially as we think about sustainability, especially as we think about how else we can ensure coffee is grown in a way that benefits all the parties in an environmentally sustainable way. So for that small experience, and now I know we've gone on to do that urban coffee project with City Council and in other places, and we're still progressing that project. Like, that was so invaluable, and everyone on my Instagram at least was like, this is amazing, how can I come and taste Cascara? I'm like, well, you have to pick coffee cherries for about an hour first. That's the tax you pay.
Yeah. And wait 4 weeks until they're all dried up. And then you get to taste them if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. If Matt hasn't tasted them all or whatever. I was like, when can I taste Brisbane Single Origin? You're like, it's finished. I'm like, what?
Oh, we've got more coming soon as
I'm
well.
good.
So yeah.
Matt, it's mine.
That's good thing that I actually then now remember that you did actually you were wearing, I don't know why I remember, were you wearing a sort of maroon
Yeah, the maroon jumper.
the jumper. Yeah, that's right.
That was
yeah,
when we
so-
first got the coffee mentality jumpers. I love that jumper.
True, yeah. Oh yeah, so because that one I'm really very passionate about our urban coffee project.
It's very cool.
Due to COVID, unfortunately, we were able to kind of put everything on hold, but we still do have trees growing around Brisbane, which is really good. Would that be something that you would think that we're supporting a cause here, or is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think to bring it also to a sustainability standpoint. I think educating people in general about what goes into making coffee, which is something that almost everybody enjoys. So being able to show people even just what the plant looks like I think there's so many opportunities for coffee mentality when it comes to further educating the public, especially people who are already interested in the coffee making process, which seems to be at least everyone on my Instagram, which is good. But, I think there's something to be said around the work that we're doing around sustainability, whether it's from the cups that we, now use and the bioplastic and things like that, to how we think about milk management, to how we think about well-being for our staff. There's specific things here that speak to how we've intentionally taken steps to improve our sustainability and happiness index that other people are interested in hearing about, which is cool that we're doing this podcast for one. But, bringing people along for that, urban project that we're doing. Even just them seeing, oh, this is a coffee cherry.
Yeah, in East Brisbane.
In East Brisbane, of all places. Brisbane, as far as I'm aware, is outside of the coffee belt. But here we are growing single origin coffee in Brisbane, which is great and also concerning because of climate change. But anyway, so it's very cool that we're able to do these very tangible things and people are interested in them. A lot of people are interested in them. And I think spreading the awareness of what goes into doing what we do with specialty coffee in particular will also keep people mindful of, when people see oh, my small vanilla oat latte is now $6. And it's like, well, there are other factors here that are going into ensuring that this is manageable and sustainable for the people who pick the coffee, the people who transport it, who roast
there's a lot
it,
involved
who make the
with
cups,
it, right? Yeah.
So it's just about also bringing that awareness. Awareness is genuinely the first step to any sort of social change. So the fact that we're already doing it low-key unintentionally is great. So I'm glad that we're now putting more effort into educating everybody about how important this beautiful, beautiful bean is.
Yes, and that I think education is one, but ultimately action is still
Yeah,
far better than education.
it is.
So this is where we are from. So in order for us to act, we have to change ourselves. Hence the reasons for being coffee mentality.
That's it.
Before we can change other, we have to change ourselves, and then we can act on that by showing what we do. What was your word? Authentic, as authentic as you are. So yeah, I mean, you've grown with us. You've achieved so many things other than coffee in your professional life, and happy that you are still with Coffee Mint and you are happy with Coffee Mint. So what's next with Trish?
Oh, that's a great question. What's next with Trish? Well, from a coffee mentality point of view, I have some aspirational goals and some immediate goals. So immediately,
I didn't know that.
oh yes,
Ooh,
be
tell me.
prepared. So immediately, like I'm lucky that I'm in this sustainability warden position, and we've gotten to do some cool things. But I don't get to work in all the cafes because I work a million other jobs, it seems. So I want to take some of the skills that I've learnt from Spur and run some facilitated workshops with our staff in particular, who have a vast amount of knowledge when it comes to coffee making and cafe running, and understand from their point of view what really does sustainability mean to them as individuals working in the coffee industry, and what ideas do they have, and I can help to assess what is maybe next for
step, yeah.
Implementation for coffee mentality, and then obviously work with you on that. Long term at coffee mentality, I want to be here forever, so I don't know. I'll have my face next to yours on that shirt. I'll help run coffee mentality one day. That's my plan.
Who knows? Who knows, Trish? Yeah, the longer we are in business, the more people we
That's
get
the
to help,
one.
right? So that's the plan.
And we also just started roasting, so that's something I've never done. So I'm keen to, learn alongside Matt and pop my head in and be like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah. Well, to do that seminar or that workshop
Yeah.
that you have, yeah, my 110%
Yay.
support. And
Good.
you, me, I'm always wanting to get everybody to step up.
Yeah.
In terms of what they wanted to do. I don't want to be the one to tell them this is what you're gonna do. I want them to say, "Hey, can I do this?" And I will always try and give my 100% if it's appropriate, of course.
Yeah.
My support, and as well for educating other people for as long as we do something about it. Let's
Yeah.
not just talk about it and then next day done. We have to do something about it,
Yeah.
because education is one thing, the action is
That's
far
it.
more important from it as well. So
Yeah.
other than Trish, where do you think coffee mentality will be at in the future?
Oh.
Now that you asked me that you're going to be with us forever, so
What's
where
my
do
dream?
you think coffee mentality will be in the future?
Well, I think we're truly going to help pioneer. Well, first of all, sustainability wardens, if everyone doesn't have one by the end of this podcast episode, I don't know what they're doing. But in terms of long scale, I think coffee mentality is in this really cool position where we help to bring knowledge and coffee to other communities that might not know. Like you're working with Nev and doing some cool things about that. I'm sure
Yeah,
you'll talk about
that's-
that next time. And
Nev is actually the next
okay, so
in the
very
series of
soon.
podcast. Yeah.
I can't wait to
Great
hear that.
guy, yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. I think we're also getting to this cool place. Like we've entered our coffee into competitions. And I know that, competing necessarily isn't a big drive, but I drink our coffee literally every day. I drink other coffee as well, but like I drink particularly our gustatory blend literally every day.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. So I think there's real opportunities for coffee mentality as a coffee brand to be out there with some of the big players. Like there's some wonderful coffees that come out of, coffee brands that have come out of Australia. And I see, at least from a flavor profile and, versatility profile, coffee mentality is right up there. Like I grew
that's
up
good,
when
yeah.
I was young drinking Merlot and all these very common, very popular Brisbane brands. And then when I tasted, the coffee we have, I was like, oh, wow.
We are a small brand and we are a small business.
Exactly. So I think there's something around that. There's also like I've been to our coffee tasting now a lot of times. There are also cool little other products that we can make with coffee, and in part of the sustainability part, process is not wasting anything. So you showed me products I never thought I'd taste, like coffee jam and cascara tea and coffee lollies. And I was telling my housemate about this spread, almost Nutella like spread on the
Yes.
down low.
Yeah.
And she was like, where can I buy it? I'm like, well, stay tuned.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of things that Coffee Mentality can do. And I hope that I can help be a part of it. That's the
I'm all
plan.
ears. I'm all ears for idea.
Ian, where do you see Coffee Mentality in the next 5 years? Over the next 5 years, what is your goal? Like, you're very good at supporting other people and finding their passions. What would you like to see come together?
I would like to see you guys all shine.
What would you like to see for yourself?
I think to be honest, I've always say this to each one of you that I think I'm happy every day. And in fact, I feel, I don't know if it's nice to say, I can die tomorrow. I'm very happy today. So I think I've did everything that I can, that I know I can say I will not regret anything what I've done. All I am looking forward to is perhaps your future, each one of you that currently work with Coffee Mentality, and for the future people that will be working with us. And as I've said, the credit is not to me, but to you guys, because you are the front line. You are the ones that pretty much create the brand. You just make me look like I'm successful. So that's the same question that the other person the other week actually said, "Oh, you are so successful," and then I replied to him, "It's like, well, that's what you think, but it is because I nurture successful people around me that they make me look I am a successful one." But I think that is true to the word that you guys actually over exceeded my expectation of doing your role in the business. Again, it's not all good because we are like what we talked about earlier. We've been pressed, the people side of it. And if we talk about sustainability, the people side of it is going to test your patience. We have been pushed to our role, to our health as well, and the balance between family and work. But again, we know the time where we need to focus and give 110% at work, and then okay, it's relaxed time. But the thing is, we try not to forget the joy of the journey. So now we're working here. It doesn't mean that it's very busy. We cannot have fun. We are focused on what we do. We know what we're doing. We can have fun and just continue the work, right? We trust each other. We trust our teammates that they'll do their job just as fine as you would do your role. So really, why the rush?
Why the rush? That's
You know what I
true.
mean? We are fast because we're working efficiently with each other. So there's no need to rush. Just enjoy doing the rhythm, like the metronome is what I've always been saying. And I think coffee for me, I'm really very happy. Anything from here onwards is a bonus for me for Coffee Mentality as well. Of course, I would like to do more. As someone says, I have to lean forward.
Yeah.
The purpose or the goal is more, I would say, the purpose of the business is for a good cause. So the longer we are in business, the more people we are able to connect, with the more people we are able to inspire, the more people we are able to motivate, and the more people we are able to change the way they think for the better of themselves, the future, their passion, and the planet, of course. And then now we've had the capacity of not only touching within our team, but now we're reaching out overseas.
Yeah.
So we're making change overseas,
Yeah.
which is really great.
It's very cool.
And this, I think, is like you. Music is the pinnacle. Like for me, this engagement or this international collaboration is the biggest change that I've never really expected it would happen to my life. So this is the legacy that I mean, I think I already have that legacy, which is you guys. But I think this would be the closest thing I could ever achieve of changing the world,
Ooh,
which
I
is
like
quite
that.
amazing. It's really, and again, the education is there. It's a matter of just acting on it. And I think this is gonna be grand. So as I mentioned earlier, we don't want to be big as a business of like size,
Yeah.
but we'd rather be big as a business of impact,
Yeah.
of purpose, of results, of action. You know, that when people actually see us from overseas, they don't, even though, yes, obviously coffee mentality, but they know us other than coffee. So I think we're achieving it every day.
I think so. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
What a response. Oh my god.
Trish, thank you very much for joining us on our Brewing Passion.
Thank you. This was great. A pleasure to be here.
Oh my